Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. Now, as you can see, I am fully in my garb and ready for my first LARP. Well, sort of fully. I'm still in my jeans right now, but I do have pants, I promise. Though I am missing a crucial part of my kit. But you cannot be a ranger without a badass Ranger Cloak. Now, I have a wish list for a badass Ranger Cloak, and I'm hoping that this project will tick off each one of those little items. Basically, I want it to be really lightweight. I already have a heavyweight cloak, as you can see right here if you want to see how that's done. But yeah, as I'm going to be playing in more like the summertime weather, that thing's going to be sweltering. So yeah, I don't want it to be bulky. I do want it to be at least somewhat weather resistant or water resistant. And I need it to be green because the Rivlin people who I'm going to be playing as all wear green. It's how you tell them apart from like the other factions that are playing. Oh, and finally, it needs to be super cheap and easy to make. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I've already spent way too much money on this LARP. Alright, so with all those stipulations in place, let's get cracking and level up this skill. Now, in order to meet the most stringent of those stipulations, the fact that it needs to be cheap, I decided to use this canvas drop cloth that I got from Harbor Freight. This thing is 4 foot by 12 foot and cost me a whopping $8. That being said, it's a really tight weave, which is exactly what we want if we want to waterproof this thing. And it's also just heavy enough to be drapey, but not so heavy it's gonna make me hot. And again, it's cheap. Which is all well and good, but I'm sure the observant of you have noticed that it doesn't meet my needs to be green stipulation. No worries, for I have a plan. My plan is to drip dye. I'm gonna dye it. I'm gonna dye the fabric. That said, I've never dyed fabric before, so I don't know how well the color's gonna come out. But as the directions state, I started with roughly 3 gallons of super hot water. To which I added just a drop of dish soap and a cup of salt. Then I just mixed in my dye. Once everything's all thoroughly mixed together, I went ahead and put the canvas into my bucket. Then I just worked the fabric in this green bath for about 20 minutes, keeping it moving constantly. This will help make sure everything gets dyed as evenly as possible and there's no little hidden folds and pockets that the dye doesn't reach. And I was already really happy with how dark that color was coming out. Now, to stop that dyeing process, I just kept filling that bucket with clean water and working out all the excess dye until the water ran clean. This part honestly took the longest to do, I think because it was just so much fabric. But yeah, it took me 20 minutes to dye it and like 40 minutes to get that water to run clean. But after a quick trip through my washer and dryer, I was left with this really nicely green piece of canvas. I am super impressed with how even this color came out and just in general how good it looks. Okay, so now that we have our colored fabric, we have to make it into a cloak. There are a bunch of designs of cloak you can go with, like just kind of the front clasp one or like little hoodie one, or there's a whole bunch out there. But after doing a mess of research, I decided to go with a Ruana cloak. Picture basically a poncho with a slit in the middle of it. That slit allows you to wrap it in a whole bunch of different ways and just makes it one of the more versatile cloaks you can use. Not only that, but my boy Gandalf here uses one. And honestly, if it's good enough for the servant of the sacred flame, then it's good enough for me. Now to make mine, I decided that like a yard worth of fabric would be good enough because from my shoulder to roughly above my knee is about a yard. I don't want this to be so long it's something that I'm tripping over or something that's getting snagged in like the underbrush. Though since I do have a front and a back, it's gonna need to be 2 yards, so there's a yard on either side basically. Damn you 3 dimensions! So I just folded that canvas in half and double checked that I had 1 yard worth of material, which is really 2 yards worth. And since that piece of canvas was 12 foot by 4 foot, that 4 foot width is perfect. That's exactly what I would want to be kind of around me here, so it drapes nicely over my arm. Now I just cut away the excess, leaving me with 2 yards of workable fabric. I then fold this in half lengthwise, basically quartering the fabric. Doing that makes this upper corner here the exact center of that piece of fabric. This is where I'm going to want to cut out the hole for my head. Now, depending on your neck size, you want this to be anywhere between like 5 and 7 inches around. But to make it easy, I just use the edge of this little bowl here, which I know to be 6 inches wide. By tracing this out and then cutting it with my wife's good scissors, I was able to make this perfect circle right in the middle of this piece of fabric. Which, by the way, if you stop right here, you have a poncho. That's what a poncho is. Got a hole in it and you're just trying to drape it over you. Bonus skill. To make this a cloak though, I next drew a straight line starting from that neck hole and going all the way to the bottom. And then I cut along that line on only the front panel, all the way up. This is going to allow that whole thing to drape around me and give me the freedom to take those individual ends and wrap them up in all these different ways. Though we can't leave the edges just cut like that because they're going to start to fray. So I just went ahead and folded them in on themselves and ironed them into place. Just as an FYI, for some reason I didn't get the footage on it, I folded them twice. So I folded them in that one time you saw, and then I took that fold and I folded it in one more time. This is just going to help bury that cut edge and make everything look a lot more clean on the inside. With that all set into place, I just ran it through my sewing machine to lock everything where I needed it to be. And this instantly gave the whole thing a real finished look. Not only that, but it also finished the cloak. It's done. That's a Rawana cloak. From here, you can throw up one side like a saucy nobleman, or perhaps put around both sides and have this kind of superhero-y look. But I know what you're thinking. Clever, it doesn't have a hood. It should have a hood. That would look better. Boom! Yes, it does have a hood. Told you this thing was versatile. Honestly, this is the coolest thing about this cloak. You can wrap it up in a whole bunch of different ways. You can tie it behind you to give you this kind of free-armed look here. Or you can like wrap a belt around it to dress it up and make it look more like a tunic. Really cool design. So, we have it lightweight, we have it green, we have it cheap. Now we need to make it waterproof, or at least water resistant. Basically, if I'm traipsing around the woods somewhere hunting my prey, I don't want to like be upset when it starts to rain and getting all soggy. Now to make this happen, I decided to go the au naturel route and wax it. With this process, you're basically just adding melted wax to the canvas to give yourself waterproofing. To do this, I just chopped up some natural beeswax into cubes so that it would melt more easily. I also chopped up the exact same amount in paraffin wax, giving me a 50-50 mix. I put these over a double boiler to melt and kept the heat on until everything was merged together. Then it's a simple matter of just brushing it generously onto the fabric. And once one side's done, I flip it over and do the same thing to the opposite side. Now, as you do this, you're going to notice that as the wax cools, it forms this white shell o' wax. Don't worry about that. All you have to do is put down a little piece of parchment paper and use an iron to reheat that wax. Doing that is not only going to even everything out, but it's also going to help that wax get deep into the fabric and penetrate all the way through to the other side. And after giving it 24 hours to cure, bam, check out my wax canvas cloak! I love how this thing came out. Again, it's super versatile, it's the right color, it ticks off all of my boxes. Not only that, but when you wax fabric, like if you crumple it up, it gives it this really cool marbled look that I love. And if you don't like the way it looks, you just reheat it again, it remelts the wax, and it goes away. Speaking of the wax, another thing I noticed is if you let it get really cold, like if you just kind of leave it laying on the floor or whatever, the wax will get kind of stiff. But as soon as you wear it and your body heat reacts with it, it then drapes and actually it conforms right to your body. It's kind of cool. And I've seen wax cloaks like this online go for like 50, 60 bucks. I made this thing with an $8 tarp, like a $3 bottle of RIT. I think the most expensive thing was the beeswax, which is like, I don't know, was it 12 bucks for a block? And even if you don't go this route, making a Rawana cloak is really easy to do. So you can do it out of like a wool blanket or whatever. It's a really cool cloak. And with that, I'm now ready to engage in glorious battle. Oh, one last thing though. The last time that I made some wax canvas, there were some questions about how flammable it is. And since we're wearing a thing that we're going to be wearing near a campfire, might be a good thing to test out. So here I have some canvas that has been waxed, and here I have some that has not. Let's light them on fire! Starting with the canvas that has not been waxed. This is regular cotton canvas here. It is on fire, immediately on fire. Cotton, pretty flammable. So there's that. See how it burns? Relax. Okay. In retrospect, I should have done this outside. Now let's see if that wax canvas burns any more. Alright, it is on fire too, roughly the same amount of time. Actually, it looks like it's burning less quickly than the other one did. I mean, it's burning clearly, but it's not crazy. It was easier to put out. I don't want to set a fire alarm off. Alright, so there we have it. Is it flammable? Yeah, but no more than regular unwaxed canvas would be. So if you're wearing anything made out of 100% cotton, it's going to be just as flammable as if you have it waxed. Rule of thumb, just respect the fire. Don't let your clothes light up. Don't be stupid, basically. Flash to me a week henceforth, running around trying to roll on the ground because my cloak's on fire. Anyways, I hope you liked this episode. If you did, want to give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. Also, if you have any fun LARP project ideas, leave them down in the comment section below. In the meantime, though, keep leveling up, you. Huzzah, you have stayed to the end screen. This is when I like to shout out all these amazing people who make this show possible. These are my Patreon members, and if you would like to join their noble ranks, click the link in the description below. And if you don't have the will or funds to support this channel, no worries, clicking one of these over here will help too.